Triangle Strategy is Square Enix's newest strategic RPG set to drop exclusively onto the Nintendo Switch. Following on the steps of Octopath Traveler, it can't be ignored how the use of HD2D gives this game a unique look, even amongst the growing list of titles making use of this popular visual feature. Choosing to take a more down-to-earth, politically focused, and exposition-heavy approach sets to give players and fans of strategic games more than their fair shares of decision-making and combats to encounter, while still providing with branching story paths that will have you coming back for more. 30 or so years have passed since the infamous Soul Iron War that shaped the way the three nations of Glenbrook, Asfrost, and Hizante see each other, constantly battling for resources and territory and never letting up one another. That changes around the time Serenoa, the son of the Lord of House Wolfort, takes over his father's duties. It just so happens that several promising technological changes give each nation a chance to cooperate and finally prosper together. At the same time, he is to be wedded, bringing somewhat of an uneasy alliance between Glenbrook and Asfrost, both for political gain but also expedience if all should fall apart and someone needs to be blamed for the changes taking place. It is then when the power of convictions begins to shape the future of not just your nation but the continent as a whole. Gameplay is broken down into chapters which can have multiple parts held within it. There's an overworld showcasing the map and the land, and here you're free to choose to either engage with the main missions or side content. The side content can consist of something as small as a quick conversation between two characters happening at the same time as your party is at a different location, to a full-on set of battles, which really does try to bring and add some flavoring to the world that's constantly growing, and not just this cast of characters with true implications to the story that's unfolding. The scales of conviction dictate where you're going to go and what will you do next. Each one of the main characters has a say in what the party should be doing, and it's up to you to try to convince them of otherwise. Typically, when discussing this with your trusted allies on what to do next, you're given two default choices to persuade them one way or another. However, if you just so happen to be diligent enough and spoke to everyone and picked up tidbits of information, they could prove useful in negotiations, so a third option can present itself. While not always being the best option, they provide you with a better set of choices that can steer a strong-headed character into your direction, giving you the outcome that you wanted once the legations are set to finish. Decision making and making sure you tread lightly when it comes to representing your kingdom properly plays a huge role in this game. As the story advances, the game is not shy about tossing you into situations that will require you to make choices that will easily and knowingly upset some of your party members, to the point that it may even cause them to leave altogether. At the same time, new ones can be asked to join your ranks based on the way you choose to engage with them, as you typically expect. There's over 20 characters in total on top of your main crew that will appear based on your decisions and how the scales are actually tipped. It's a finely tuned dance of cause and effect where you shape, or at the very least have a hand in, the outcome itself. There are, however, some instances that you may not quite read well into the outcome being either so grim or perhaps turning out the way you expected it. So it would have been good if the game actually perhaps hinted at you at what the potential loss of a character, or even let you know what you are set to miss if you continue this route. But it would only cut away from the potential replayability of the game, which I presume is something that developers will wish for players to do once they finish the story at the very least once. Before every engagement, you have a chance to check out on the encampment. This is where you can raise your character's weapon skills, learn new traits, purchase new skills, pick up items that may help you out on the field, and even take on some mock battles to quickly get a hold of new tactics and many more important aspects that will give you an upper hand in combat. One of these is raising your weapon's proficiency if you're a melee class, or perhaps learning a few spells if you're a caster, and of course, even the option to raise your character's class altogether to a more powerful one. There's 3 different classes for each one of the character units, and each boost costs you both gold and materials, so it's always best to remain stocked up. There's 2 different currencies to keep in mind, both gold and kudos, and only certain things can be purchased with either or. With that said, you'll be gaining both after combat, so making sure you picked up dropped off rewards after you take down an enemy unit is crucial if you wish to maximize your gains in each encounter. The strategic combat isn't anything you haven't necessarily never seen before. It stays mostly true to the traditional turn-based affair where you and the enemy units take turns making decisions based on who's the fastest character. This is broken down into 2 separate steps. One is moving your unit to a desired destination for setting up either a combined attack or a solo attack. These can take many shapes and forms, be it due to the location or simply being close to another ally. This is where you'll also be privy to just how much danger your unit will be put into as they're moved into a certain direction. Could they become the focus of an enemy attack after your turn? Will the direction that they're facing cause them to be struck from behind? These are all different choices you have to consider whenever you choose to move a unit. Then deciding how you wish to engage, be it for a basic attack, a skill use, or any other. Skills of course also come in many flavors, for one to simply dish out an attack, a basic attack to an enemy, others that could do special AoE damage, others that could do damage over time. There's certain buff that you can also do to yourself, heals, or anything along those lines. There is a feature awarded to you later in the game that will work as a predictor of sorts, giving you a good idea if your attack can take out a unit, do normal damage, or simply fail to hit its mark. Making sure you put certain characters versus the proper unit will often be the best route to victory. This is in twofold. Each attack, buff, and or heal earns you experience, and they can net your characters the chance to learn a new ability. However, if you're always putting them in an unfavorable situation, then it stunts their growth and they can spell disaster down the road whenever you need it the most. And just like each one of your unique characters, enemy units come in all shapes and forms, and knowing which characters can engage them is best to your advantage, since some of them can simply block attacks, block range attacks, or simply have a shield, meaning that they can mitigate all types of melee damage. It's in this type of scenario where the terrain can be a huge boon to your cause. In certain cases, the higher ground means longer range views for your casters and archers, where magic in combination with unit buffs can net you elemental terrain changes. These come in many forms, like melting ice with a fire attack, so it leaves puddles behind, which then can subsequently be followed up with a lightning attack that would have typically just hit one square, can now be turned into an AoE attack which can hit multiple units all at once. This can also be expanded to statuses like poison, paralyze, blindness, and many more. You also have the aid of quietest points. These are boosts that can do many things that your units can also perform. However, they come at no cost once you pick them up, and they can be used once in battle. In order for you to be able to afford them, however, you're gonna need to pick up plenty of kudos, which simply translates to performing well in battle. You do many of that, and you'll have plenty of quietest points to acquire. The option to switch difficulties is afforded to players, so you are never really stuck in a specific battle if you're having a tough time moving forward. This is on top of many smaller features like collecting tomes that will tell the story of the world before your affairs began, switching attack speeds from normal to faster, and even placing and switching party units before any engagement goes a long way for strategic players and story hounds alike, getting the best out of the experience. Performance on the Nintendo Switch is mostly excellent. Visuals in the game are striking in both handheld and docked mode. The slowly moving camera and the shimmering effects to the side give the focal point clarity and sharpness, while still the sides blend in with the environment. With that said, there is a certain level of blurriness that has me wondering if the game is actually sub 1080p when you're playing it docked, or perhaps it's the form of anti-aliasing causing many things to blend into each other, but that's a bit more than expected. OLED fans, however, are in for a treat regardless, as the game shines in that display. Frame rates wise, there is some hitching happening as a battle begins but quickly goes away after you're enthralled in combat. You will notice it as the transition appears, but it's mostly something you'll never be dealing with anywhere else. Triangle Strategy is a beautiful game with many excellent improvements to the formula. A world that's been begging to be discovered, characters that have a voice, wish to be heard, and play a huge role into the decision making that dictates just how your story will transpire. With that said, some clear explanations on what those freedoms could deprive you or provide you, on top of some minor performance issues, prevent this title from being as good as it can actually be. Nintendo Sphere gets Triangle Strategy on the Nintendo Switch an 8.5 out of 10. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.